Hi everyone, here's the Bookamish once again. It's the end of July and in a few weeks, if you live in America, or in a few months if you live in Europe, college will resume once again, and some of you will go back to your college careers, and some of you will begin college, a new experience, something so awesome, like probably the best years of your life or something like that. You're not going to get them back, enjoy them. And some of you, maybe the crazy ones, are going to study English or literature. I'm talking about foreign languages and literature, English literature, those kinds of things. I actually graduated from my master's degree in English literature a few weeks ago, and in October I will begin my PhD in English, actually American literature. And so I thought it was high time I filmed a video with a few suggestions, a few tips for English majors. Two disclaimers. Number one, a video like this, giving suggestions like this, is incredibly complicated to do because studying literature is a very different experience according to the country you study it in. I have studied in different universities here in Italy and in the UK, and studying literature in Italy and in the UK are so different experiences, completely different experiences. I have friends in France, for instance, who talk to me about their system, and it's different too. I know in America, again, is different. So really, I hope these tips are going to be helpful no matter where you're studying like literature. Where did I study? You know, a place called the University of Cambridge is pretty much the best university in the world. One of my professors came from there. He was a visiting professor. As for the places I studied, I'm not going to tell you because I'm actually Thomas Pinch. Disclaimer number two, this is not going to be one of those videos like career opportunities for English majors or your possible future when you're a literature major, because that's all crap. And I'll talk about it briefly at the end of the video, but it's not a video like that. It's a video when you're having a university career. It's a video about your modules and the stuff you have to do while you're studying. Here we go. You know that Poet Society and the whole business about like tearing off pages from literary textbooks and reading for the enjoyment it gives you and for the emotions it stirs in you, and because that's what it is to be human, and the whole walking through the garden, reading whatever the fuck and all that. Awesome movie, Robbie Williams, so good, so fun. It's also largely crap. That Poet Society is to literature and literary studies pretty much what Jurassic Park is to paleontology. Great movies, amazing, they have nothing to do with the actual sciences of the thing. The one golden rule you should keep in mind and you should have very clear is that English literature, and literature in general, fuck English, literature in general is a science. Literary studies are a science. Human beings work as narrative creatures. They like interact with each other, and they think, and they like discuss their history, discuss everything as a narrative. And studying narrative forms is serious business, people. It's a fucking science, just like anything else. It's not a hard science like physics or whatever. It doesn't want to be. It's still a science. Narratology is important. All those things that seem boring, like the way poetry is structured, the way novels are structured, they are important. Links with art sciences, like nowadays there are a lot of inter-area research in like medicine and literature, or in like neurocognitive studies, the way our brains work, the reason we enjoy literature. All of that is so important, and you should keep that in mind. That is why when you read things online about being an English major as, you know, spending your days reading Shakespeare, that's crap. If you're an English major, you spend your days reading Harold Bloom or Charles Lamb or Matthew Arnold. You spend your days reading essays and like research on Shakespeare. Not the fucking thing. I mean, sure, you read the fucking thing, but that's the good part. That should be the prerequisite to study the rest of the thing. So yeah, that should be clear from the start if you are to avoid bad surprises and if you are to enjoy studying literature. I mean, if you study literature because you like to read as a pastime, that's not enough. It's like, I mean, I'm sure when you study biology or geology, I'm sure you do that because you're fascinated with nature and with the mysteries of nature. That's needed. If you study business, I'm sure you love money. That's needed. But it's not the be-all end-all of the whole thing. Let's move to the practical tips, because I'm sure you're all eager for those. Try to do as many preliminary readings and to read as much of the material you have to read before classes even begin. When I'm talking about primary sources, I'm talking about the poetry and novels and plays you are going to study in your classes. You can read them during the semester and during the term, and sometimes you will have to do that because of like really issues of time. But that's going to be harder because you'll have to attend classes and you'll have to do your homework and to write essays or study for like partial exams and those kinds of things. So the more you can do before classes begin, the best going to be for you. If you do that, if you follow this suggestion, take notes about the stuff you read. Learn to read closely, to take notes on the book, on whatever you want. Because when you read a novel in like early August, it's not as, it's not that sure that you'll remember all of it even at the beginning of December, especially if it's a complicated, a cryptic novel. This next one is a golden tip I'm handing you. Don't waste it because it's really, really gold. When you have to choose modules, when you can choose between different modules studying different things, choose the modules, yes, of course, according to your preferences. If one module studies, I don't know, 18th century novels, the other studies young adult fiction, and you love young adult fiction, you might want to choose that one, but in general, choose the module because of the professor, not because of the syllabus. When you choose classes, get informed about professors, about their teaching methods, about how they are, and choose according to that. Because in the university system, according to my experience, different professors teach very differently, and like a good professor will make even the most boring, even the worst book in the universe interesting and relevant, and a mediocre or a bad professor will turn your favorite book into crap. It's actually terrible to attend a class which is filled with, it discusses texts you love, but the professor is so bad that he or she ruins them so badly, and that's really, really terrible. Also, that way, if you choose modules according to professors and not syllabus, that's a great way of reading outside your comfort zone, of reading texts you wouldn't have normally read, to discover other areas of literature, literatures from other parts of the world, literature from past ages. Especially if you're going to carry on with this career and you're going to specialize in a specific area, and in that case you'll need to be very well read about the area you're specializing in. Having a knowledge of other areas, other times, is going to be very useful. For instance, I study contemporary literature, especially contemporary American literature, and many of my professors suggested me to invest a bit in classics, because when you study contemporary literature, the academic world tends to look at you with a more understanding eye if you also have a knowledge of the classic, if you're not limited to contemporary literature. Also, pro tip, read the classics, that's needed. Michael Chabon put it very explicitly when he said that all novels are sequels. All writers since the dawn of time read their classics, what was the classics in their time, improved on them, used them in their works. And really, literature, when you think about it this way, it's like an ongoing discussion that goes on since the dawn of civilization, really. Reading the classics is like reading back issues of the same series, of the same fucking comic book series you're reading. It's not irrelevant, even if you're only studying very contemporary stuff. It's always useful, it's always needed. Do read the fucking classics. Talking about the syllabus again, if you are one of those persons who chooses classes, one class instead of the other, because you look at the syllabus and you add up the pages of all novels in the syllabus and you choose the class that will allow you to read the least, like the class made of 3 200-page novels, you are an awful person and you should not be in a literature department at all. If you choose a class because it's going to make you read very little, what are you studying in literature for? I mean, that part, reading the primary sources, should be the good part, should be the fun part. If you don't find fun in that, you are maybe in the wrong line of work. Oh, but come on, book chemist, all English majors love to read. I actually know of people who were given the Great Gatsby to read, the fucking Great Gatsby, this thick, and asked the professor if they had to read it all, or if a few excerpts could do. Yeah, but book chemist, what if I don't like the books in a specific class, in a specific module, even if I love to read in general? This leads to another tip I am going to give you, which is going to sound a bit weird, but The tip is, your strong opinions are probably crap. And I'm telling you from the perspective of someone who, at the beginning of his university career, believed people like, I don't know, Franz Kafka to be nothing to write home about, who believed many classic authors, Goethe at first, I believe it wasn't, yeah, Goethe, who cares? Your strong opinions are probably crap. Especially if you're studying in a university like in the UK or in America, where a lot of importance is going to be put in seminars and in discussion. Like, try to mitigate your strong opinions, because yeah, I'm sure you have your taste and that's important, but the more you study literature, the more you'll realize that if those authors, if classic authors, if important and seminal authors have been studied for centuries, there is a reason. And it's not like you are a genius and you just realize that they don't deserve to be studied. It's that probably you don't get why they deserve to be studied. It's fine to believe that some canonical authors shouldn't be canonical, but before you do that, you should understand the reason why other people believe they deserve to be studied. I have been in classes where people believed and said that, for, I don't know, Shakespeare was not good, they didn't like Shakespeare, that Tolstoy was not good and like was really a bad writer, that other writers, classic writers, Joyce, whatever the fuck, Dickens were not good writers. And I can tell you this, when you get into an English class or a literature class and you say that Shakespeare doesn't deserve to be studied, and I'm telling you this from the perspective of someone who is a bit fed up with the whole admiration and adoration of the early modern period, when you do something like that, it's a bit like walking into a biology department or a science department and telling people that the theory of evolution is crap, or that global warming doesn't exist. It's the kind of thing that makes people go like, yeah, you probably don't know what you're talking about. No matter how much you love novels and you love narrative, do take a few poetry classes. When you study poetry, do listen to the poetry you're studying, do listen to people who know what they're doing reading it. If you're studying contemporary authors, listen to them reading it themselves. It's very crucial, it's very important in order to understand what you're studying. If you study theater, if you're studying plays, a crucial part of studying plays is seeing them on stage. If you can go to a theater and if you can watch an actual representation and staging of the play you're studying, do look for a film version, or do even better, do look for a recorded version of the play in the theaters. Those are incredibly easy to find if you're studying like Shakespeare or early modern stuff. They're a bit more difficult for more like obscure things, but in general you can usually find at least a filmed version of the plays you're studying. This next one's going to be more for, not really for English majors, for foreign literature majors. Try to read as many books, as many of the texts you have to study in their original language. Translation sciences are an awesome thing, and translation is needed in today's world, and it's going to be for a few centuries more, and that's crucial. And everybody who thinks Google Translate is going to supplant human beings soon has no idea how language works. But at the same time, try to read the text, the literary text, in the original language. Because one, it's different from translations, it's the original source, the very text. And two, because that's an awesome way of improving your language skills. I firmly believe that my English improved a lot when I started reading all my English texts in English, in the original language. And no matter what language you're studying, I'm sure you'll find, and you can ask people for easy books, short reads that you can understand no matter what your level is. That's an incredibly awesome and easy way of improving your language skills. Two last tips. When you have to specialize in something, choose something you love. This sounds like a silly suggestion, but it is not, because really many people, I've met many literature students who chose to write their thesis, for instance, or to write essays on works and on authors they didn't like at all. On classic authors who are very important, very relevant, they didn't enjoy reading. And why would you do that? It's pointless. Especially nowadays. Nowadays you can basically study graphic novels in universities. I'm sure that in a few years you're probably going to be able to study video games in English departments. So if you are passionate about anything, study that, because that's the way it's going to become relevant to the literary world at large. Finally, remember what I said at the beginning of the video about career opportunities? When someone asks you about your career opportunities as an English major, about what job you're going to get once you graduate, tell them to go eat a dick. I'm not going to discuss this in depth because it's a complicated topic, it depends on the country you're in, and my answer will still be go eat a dick at the end of the day. What I can tell you is that, one, I know many people, of course, who graduated in English or in foreign languages and literature, and all of them have jobs. None of them are like homeless people or poor. They all have jobs, and they're all nice jobs. Some of them have nothing to do with literature, that's true, but they are all jobs. Sure, some of them have nothing to do with literature, but that leads me to the second point, to the other thing. Studying literature is good because it furthers human knowledge. You're going to study something you love. It's a science. It has its place in the world. If you do that and then you're not going to work with literature ever again, you will still have done something good for the world at large and especially for yourself. Like, especially if you have the chance to do that because you come from a family that doesn't have any major monetary problem, do study literature if you feel like it. Being an English major at the end of the day is like it's a bit like being a chef. I mean, you're not really needed because people can still eat by themselves. They can eat in, fast food places, or they can buy their food in supermarkets and eat them, like cook it themselves. But sometimes people like to have their food cooked by people who know what they're doing, and so, they prefer to go to a restaurant and eat what a chef is cooking. At the same time, people love to read, and lots of people read without ever reading an academic essay or without ever reading secondary sources, and that's completely fine. But there are people who like reading so much that they like to, share the reading experience with the opinion and the insight of people who study that as an academic career, as a profession. That's as simple as that. There's nothing useless or wrong or pointless with all that. It's all there, if you ask me. Thank you so much for watching once again, guys. Let me know what your suggestions for literature majors are, what you think about my points, if you don't agree with them. Some of them I think are like arguable. Let me know what you think. I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.